everyone, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Bree Buonomo. Hi if you're new here, or hey if you've been here before. Today I'm going to be doing a discussion video because it has been a real long time since I've discussed anything to my knowledge, at least in this kind of format. And also it's been a long time since I filmed a video. As someone who was previously doing 2 videos a week, it just having this break is both the best and the worst thing, not having a consistent schedule anymore. In the previous video that you saw, I had taken a break from that one, which was posted I think on the 13th of July, and then the week after I didn't post anything, and it was really weird because I had a couple videos scheduled and then I just never had time to film another one, and I wasn't gonna stress myself out. So anywho, we're rambling now, but hi guys, it's nice to be back. And as mentioned, I am going to be doing a discussion video, and I'm going to be talking about unlikable characters in literature. And not really any specific unlikable characters, but just the general concept of unlikable characters. Because I was thinking about this and how I generally tend to say I love unlikable characters, and then I started thinking about why I say that. And using some of my psychology background, I thought we can dive into that a little bit deeper. So, as always with my discussion videos, grab yourself a beverage of choice. Today I had a free beverage from Dunkin' Donuts, and I decided to get the butter pecan sundae latte in a large because I had a free coffee, so why not get large? And I don't know how I feel about it. Probably would never get this again. I'm thankful that I did not pay for it outright, but it's not bad. It's just if you don't like sweeter drinks, this is probably the best for you. But if you want something sweeter, I usually get caramel. This isn't as sweet as my normal caramel. So yeah, anyway, grab yourself a beverage, relax, sit back, and let's start a discussion. So to begin this discussion, I will definitely say that the term unlikable character is not really well defined, because it typically is subject to change based on who is reading the character or writing, if you're also a writer. And I think that's an important key factor to consider when we're talking about unlikable characters to begin with, because unlikable characters are typically people who have traits that we don't always agree with, or that if given a real life situation might be a little annoying. And that's kind of my own definition of unlikable characters. When doing a quick Google search on unlikable characters in general, one thing that comes up is when asked what makes a character unlikable, it is argument between protagonists, teasing or banter where one character criticizes another or gives them a hard time. Any scene where the protagonist tries to convince someone how to handle their personal problems differently or go about their life differently. And in general, typically holds a strong opinion that our other protagonist or main character or antagonist or the reader/writer themselves don't agree with. And this makes it so interesting, because I think this is where differences come where we talk about unlikable characters, because just because my opinion might be different than yours, I might actually agree with one character and hence just kind of think they're likable, whereas someone else might look at the character and be like, oh, they're super unlikable, but I like how they have a dynamic with this character in the novel, and thus makes them likable. So here's my overall hot take on unlikable characters, is that if you have to say, I like unlikable characters, those characters aren't unlikable. So hear me out. The thing with characters is that typically what happens is there are certain character traits that are going to appeal to a variety of people, and some people are going to really resonate with them. Some people are going to maybe like some of their traits. Some people are going to downright disagree with them. And thus you have this whole spectrum of characters. And when you think about it, that is how the human race functions. We are all such individualized people with varying backgrounds, with varying environmental factors and family factors, and all of these different areas of our lives that compound together to make us who we are and give us personalities that we're not always going to be appealing to everyone. But for instance, I always say that when I'm doing therapy and I have my clients in front of me, I always tell them that it's okay if they don't jive with me. Not everyone is going to jive with me as a therapist because of how I run therapy. And I always say that it's better off just to tell me that you don't like how I approach therapy or you don't like something about me, and we can get you to someone that you might agree with, rather than you sit here and struggle because you don't like me or don't agree with me. And that's the same thing for characters. You're gonna have characters that you're just not gonna jive with, and they are unlikable. And in some cases, my best example would be Umbridge. Umbridge you can appreciate as a character, but I don't think there's anyone on this planet that likes Umbridge. Like, she is downright detestable, and for a good reason. She was well written as a good villain. But no one is ever gonna like her, and thus, when you say like you like Umbridge, typically it's followed with, I like how she was written, and not you like her, because she's not a likable character in any facet. However, when you look at someone like Katniss Everdeen is typically a strong example of an unlikable main character, because Katniss is very practical, very cynical, and very real. Katniss is put in a dilemma where she has gone through trauma and all she's doing is being on survival mode, which means that a lot of like the frivolousness of the Capitol does not appeal to her because they represent everything that she's never experienced, and she's been put in a parentified position in order to save herself and her family. So there's that clash because we only see her as this hard character who is kind of nasty to a lot of people because she's just in survival mode. But because of that real life issue that people can relate to, people end up liking her. And there are some redeeming qualities of Katniss that makes it that you can enjoy reading from her. Because I guarantee if someone was to go and read an Umbridge like short story or a book, and it was just in her perspective of her being a nasty bitch the entire time, no one is gonna like that book. And hence where I think that unlikable characters that we like to read don't actually exist, because we just like them. We just like them as characters. And I feel like we need to stop justifying the fact that they're unlikable because they have unlikable qualities. Then we look at our human race, and the psychology brain in me goes, okay, well, if you don't like this quality, that's different from not liking the character. And if we were humans in real life, then we know that there are going to be friends and family and a bunch of other people in our lives that we're not going to like every single quality of them, but we still like them as a whole. And thus, this is how my brain has been functioning, thinking about these unlikable characters that aren't really actually unlikable. They're just human. I don't really know where I was going to go with this whole thing, because I just really wanted to share this opinion on how unlikable characters aren't unlikable. And I don't know if this, like, the more that I sit and think with it and speak my thoughts out loud, if anyone else agrees with me, because I do think it's an interesting take and not one that people like, because being human is such like a fragile thing, and there's so many opinions in the world that I think most of the time, especially when we're reading, we like to detach ourselves from those human emotions, even when we like to read people going through real life experiences to some degree or another. Now, obviously, when you have a dystopian novel, you're going to have your main characters who are going through a lot of shit that we're not going to experience. Maybe a caveat there and a star asterisk, because some dystopian novels come a little too close to the truth lately. But that aside, these characters are usually going through something so extreme. And the same thing with fantasy worlds. There's a lot of fantasies that can mirror some aspects of our real life, but usually take them to a extreme degree. But we always end up relating to them in some way, as long as they're well written, because they mimic our real human existences. And that can be scary when we actually lay that out and kind of go back and forth on that, because real life can suck sometimes. And when we think we're reading for escapism, and then you realize that you're reading something very similar to what we're living, you can have two different opinions on them. You can either love that and feel like you're being connecting, or you can reject that completely and feel like you hate that book because it's way too similar. And I've seen, especially during the pandemic last year, how so many people didn't want to read things that are similar to real life, especially the dystopians and like plague novels and zombie novels, because it was so similar. And a lot of people were like, oh, if I just wanted to, read my own life experience, I would just, write my own book or something. And coming back to the characters, I think that's the same concept, where when we don't want to face how we are as people, or like if we have someone that we love but we have really bad features of them, or if we have someone we hate and we don't want to look at or like talk to anymore. Sometimes facing those characteristics are going to be the same thing. You're either going to end up very jiving with that character and thus they become likable, or you're going to end up rejecting that character completely and you're going to hate that character. And that brings me back to the fact that liking unlikable characters aren't really a thing when we break it down in this manner. Like anything in human existence, I do think everything is on a spectrum, which is why I think there's this common phrase of I like an unlikable character. Because a lot of times most characters are going to fall somewhere in the middle for people. You're going to, again, agree with some of the traits they have and completely disagree with other traits. You're going to like some of their decisions. You're going to want to bash their head in because they made this decision. So a lot of times you end up in the middle. And that's why I think there are so many unlikable characters in literature, because most of the time they're just normal humans being in a situation that's a little bit more extreme than we actually deal with. That's where that spectrum comes in, because then you have on the one hand those hatred characters like Umbridge who have no redeeming qualities and are usually meant to be a strong antagonist for a main character. I don't think I've ever read a point of view where the main character was an absolute asshole like Umbridge, because I don't think that would sell very well, because no one would want to read that perspective all the time. Maybe there's a couple books that have multiple POVs that is a character, and I can understand that more, but I haven't read one of just that kind of character. And on the other end, we have characters who are absolutely flawless, also known as the Mary Sues. And we know that there's a ton of problems with that as well, because they tend to be very boring characters, because nothing they do is ever wrong, everything is perfect, and thus on both extremes, we have very unlikable characters. We have the characters who are absolutely terrible people, and then the characters are too perfect and are boring and we don't like them. Thus, most of the people land in the middle. And yeah, I think that's kind of where my tangent is just going to end at this point, is that most of our characters are in the middle and they represent a pretty consistent ideal human that we will experience on a day-to-day basis. And not everyone's going to agree with them. Some people are going to love them. Some people are going to hate them, no matter what they do. But really, there's no such thing as an unlikable character if you actually enjoy reading from their perspective. So that's my hot take. I think this video was pretty succinct. I also will say that I never script my videos, so going into this was just my brain dump, as always, and I hope I made sense. I'm not going to reshoot this video, so you get what you get. I hope you love my chaotic energy when this video comes out. But as always, let me know down below what you think about unlikable characters. And after me spewing off some of my nonsense, do you agree with me that we don't actually have unlikable characters if we like them, and that the unlikable characters are more of the extremes that I talked about? Or do you still think there are unlikable characters out there? Let me know. I'd love to hear your opinions. And as the point of this video, let's start a discussion in the comments. If you like this video, please consider liking it and leaving a comment, as that always helps with engagement. And be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. And thank you guys so much for sticking around. I am at 750 followers, I think, at this point, which is mind-blowing. And I would love to see if I can get 1,000 by the end of the year. I have no idea if I'm going to do it, but I'm going to thank you guys for getting me even this close as 750, because I never thought it was going to happen. So thank you guys so much. I will hopefully be back next week with another video on Tuesday. And in the meantime, feel free to check out all my backlog that I have, because I have quite a few videos at your disposal. So thanks, and until next time, I'll see you then. Bye!